Five beats today, an Oxford specialist, a weekend with Shirley, Thanksgiving dinner, a clinic sting, and a new job that finally fits. Welcome to Just Jack's episode 20, Not Enough. Well, hello, darling, and welcome to the Just Jax podcast. Hi, I'm Jax, and I help you find the can in your cat. When we challenge our cats, miracles happen, because when I challenged mine of I can't draw, I can't paint, and I can't color, imagine my surprise when I discovered what I can do is create a 21-foot garden mural that was recently featured not once but twice on the front page of our local newspaper. Next up, I challenge the I'm no author, no artist, and no cursive writing specialist, but what I can do is self-publish 3 books for my kick-ass cursive writing curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. I'm a jack of all trades, but what I master in is helping ordinary people like me to do extraordinary things through laughter, tears, life-changing stories, because metaphors are my jam. Together we can find the can in your can'ts, the do's in your don'ts, and the wills in your won'ts. I'm so excited for you. Let's go. Well, hello, my darlings, and welcome back to the Just Jax podcast. Or if you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are at episode 20, Not Enough. We are tackling all of those nasty adopt-a-knots. This is part 4 of a 7-part series addressing all the knots in your life that keep you small. We have gone over not seen, not safe, not wanted, and now we are at number 4 of not enough. Today we're going to talk about these 5 stories that will help you hopefully be able to realize that you are enough just as you are. And as well, my wish is that it takes you a shorter time than 40 years to figure it out. So let's start with the first story, and that's the Oxford lawyer. Because of my belief system that I could never be more than I am, I was very, very intimidated by people that had letters behind their name like bachelors of this or masters of that or PhD of this. And all I was or had was a PhD in chaos, and the letters behind my name were BITCH. Well deserved, well earned, and probably a PhD level of that too. But I felt very small against people who had degrees in school. For myself, I have a 2-year degree in something that I never ever used. It was occupational health and safety. It was a necessary jump because I went to university for a year, but because of my insecurities and my inability to focus, I failed out of my first year of university and went for 2 years to a college where I got an associate's degree. I later also did one more level of accounting, and I found out that my attention to detail and my personality, my attention to detail was too small and my personality was too big for accounting. So that door shut for me. And in the process of trying to find myself, I became a temporary admin person, which meant that I could do reception or administrative assistant. And my job was to be placed in an office where the main person who did the job was on holidays or vacation, and they needed someone to step in and have the company run as smooth as possible. And I did a kick-ass job of that because I am able to quickly adapt and process my environment and learn what's necessary to make it run. And as a matter of fact, I was at a placement for 1 week and they gave me a birthday cake even because my birthday happened during that week, and I made such an impression on the team that they wished they could have kept me, but their regular person was coming back. During one of those placements, I was sent to an office that was run by an Oxford lawyer. In my testing to be a temporary placement specialist, I guess you would want to say, I had to go through some basic, intermediate, and expert level tests of these word processing programs like Microsoft Word or Excel, and be able to go into an office and do whatever they needed to do. This gentleman requested an expert in Microsoft Word and mail merges. Now, I had a pretty good understanding of mail merges, and what a mail merge is that if you receive a letter from, let's say, your doctor's office or your insurance company, and it's a generic letter that's addressed to you and has your personal information of how much you owe or what your car is or anything like that, they use a mail merge for that because they have a body of the letter that remains the same, and then they just feed in the address, name, date, and then whatever value they need that is specific to you in that letter. And I know how to do those. I know how they run. I'm a little rusty in regards to how to get it to operate. It's kind of like riding a bike after being off one for quite a while, but it comes back pretty quickly. And I was classified as an expert because I'm gonna do a kick-ass job of that program. Needless to say, that Oxford lawyer was a fucking psycho. I have never seen anyone use mail merges to that level. He was off the charts. It was actually impressive. It was inspirational to some degree because he had all of his contracts made with a mail merge. So all he had to do was plug in certain values and wham, his contract was done in seconds. And he looked at me and he sneered at me and he said to me, "Well, I thought you were an expert." And I finally had enough with this condescending attitude. And I just looked at him and said, "You know what? I understand that you sat in your Oxford chair for however many years it took for you to be a lawyer, but I'm telling you right here and now that if I sat beside you, I would have kicked your ass. The only difference between you and myself is geography and where you placed your butt for 8 years and the life choices you made. I went to the School of Hard Knocks. You went to Oxford. So stop talking to me like I'm stupid." Well, the air shifted after that, and we became actually quite good co-workers because I was able to stand my ground. The reason I knew this is because in my past, I had an experience where when I applied myself just a tad little bit, I had seen success. And that was when I was in college. I had failed out of my first year of university, and I was in the first semester. I was so wrapped up in the fact that I was lost. I just felt really lost and I had no idea what I wanted to do. In in the second semester, it was about the same. And then in the third semester, it just clicked with me that I was going to apply myself and see what I could do. And all I did that was different was pay attention a little more in class. And it was a success. I had brought my GPA up almost a whole point and just by paying attention in class. And so, geez, I wish I had that mantra. I'm the type of person because I could have totally used that then and knew that that was something that since I'd done it once before, I could do it again and be able to build my cans up so that I can build my self-confidence and my worth. It's interesting where I would have been if I would have had more self-worth. Needless to say, I certainly would have milked that for everything that it was worth. Instead of going, I'm the type of person who feels insecure around people who have degrees. Because that was the main I'm the type of person statement that I said a day in, day out. My cousins in my family, the ones that have degrees, I've always looked up to them and felt that they looked down on me because I failed to go to university and make a success out of myself according to that standard. I carried that feeling with me right into a workshop. And this workshop was one where you go in and you really have an intense therapy session in a group setting. And I had brought a friend of mine because that therapy sessions, those workshops really made a positive impact on my life and set me on the trajectory that I am right now. Well, she had a complete opposite response, and it was horrendous. She was having a meltdown in a hallway in the building. Funny how things work out. When I came into the workshop, there was this woman that she just rubbed me the wrong way. She gave me a really weird energy. And I came up to her and I said, I understand that these workshops, there's a reason for everything, and you have rubbed me the wrong way, and I have no idea why, but I just wanted to let you know that if you feel anything weird for me, it's just because I'm trying to sort out what this is. As it turned out, the woman was a clinical psychologist, basically the lettered version of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to help people. And I was completely inferior I was in her shadow. Yet, when my friend was going through her psychosis, it was myself and the woman that brought her back so she could regulate herself. And I did 95% of the talking. And at the end, when we were together, I looked at her and I said, I'm so intimidated by you. And she looked at me and she said, why would you be? You're the one that handled that entire scenario. And later on, when I had visited with her at her house, she looked at me and she says, that's one of the things you need to realize is that there are quite a few different types of intelligence, and book smart is only one of them. It's sad that our society only validates and awards and celebrates the book smart and makes it a criteria that that is the only form of learning and the only form of being smart. But here, let me just list these for you. I asked AI to do what it does best and compile a list of the different types of intelligences, because maybe this list can also free you and realize that you are brilliant in what you know and what you do, and then you can find a tribe or find that your people that are also brilliant in the same thing and find out where you belong. Because if you were like me, you grew up thinking that there was only one way to measure intelligence, and that was with school. The gold star test score report kind of way, that book smart lane gets paraded like it's the only highway worth driving. I have testimony to that because they're hiring people in my company based on the fact that they have a degree, and it has nothing to do with whether or not they can manage people or have experience in what they're doing. The fact that they got an art degree allows them to have the capacity to govern and manage and lead the department better than I do, because I only have an associate's degree, but I have 8 years of intense boots on the ground experience. It's interesting though, in regards to book smart versus, I call it maybe street smart. I use this example consistently, and that I find is what's missing in businesses that get too big. Like mine, I'm in healthcare. We have 2 hospitals, we have multiple clinics, we have multiple services. With that comes the I can feel like a number, or if I if they fire me, no one will know or notice or care except for the small little cell that I impacted, or possibly the web that I created. What I find that's missing is the disconnect between management and the boots on the ground. And if any of you have ever watched the show Blue Bloods, Tom Selleck is aging like a fine wine, mustache and all. But my husband and I watched the entire series and we really, really enjoyed it. And there were 2 things that came out of that series. One was the understanding of what it meant to have boots on the ground, because the main character, Tom Selleck, was the chief of police for New York City, and he had different people on his advisory. One had to do with his presence and how his department and him were perceived by the public. But the one I found that was the most important was played by the character Sid. And his job was to keep the chief of police grounded and understood how his decisions were going to impact the little people, and the boots on the ground had the voice. I had this experience where I score kept ice hockey, and I score kept it for years, and in many different types of ice hockey rinks. even ones that were tailor-made for the Special Olympics, because typically you step into the penalty box in a general rink, but in those rinks, they had the door open where it was completely flush with the ice so that the sled could go in and out easily. But there was this one rink where you could really tell that the masterminds had zero boots on the ground input. When they were deciding to put the clock and its placement, they never once considered or consulted with any of the people that work a rink and know what the best thing to have a most efficient experience for everyone would be. Granted, it did serve best for one of the designs of where the people would sit, but unfortunately, it was horrible for the people who played the game. Number one, the men who were in the penalty box couldn't see what time it was when they were supposed to leave unless they almost sat on the boards of the rink and watched the clock that way or really contorted themselves. For me, they compensated by putting a little 6-inch screen iPad so that I could watch, but it was on a time delay. And the biggest thing was the fucking horn. Loud. It was there right above my head, the actual loud horn that would notify everyone. Can you imagine how loud that was? How loud that was? How loud that is or was? I got pretty masterful of stopping that horn pretty quick. So, because no one wanted to hear it, the refs, the people in the box, or myself. Imagine what could have happened if they would have done some boots on the ground configuring when they designed the rink in the first place, because there was another area that the clock could be where people could see it that would be less convenient, but a lot better experience for everyone. And this is a perfect example when only one type of smart is celebrated. And we're going to go through the list here of all the different types of intelligence, but it's to give you hope, because if you're constantly beating yourself up or keeping yourself small because you are measuring yourself against only one of these sticks, it's time to find out where and what you are really good at and what you excel at, and see how you can find where you fit in this world with what you're naturally good at and what recipe you create with these smarts. So let's start with book smart. That is the one that everyone already knows. Facts, tests, memorizing dates, spelling words, the stuff that makes school feel like school. If that is your lane, great, but stay with me. There is more. Now let's dive into some other ones here. Then there is number smart. Oh, the ones that are good at math. Ooh, math. I do like math. These are the pattern spotters. Yep, yep, yep. The logic puzzle solvers. Yep, yep, yep. The people who can see a budget. Ooh, maybe. A spreadsheet or a recipe and instantly know what works and what is broken. They run on sequences and symmetry. Oh, I could say I have a little bit of the number smart part, only because that when I came, I want to create a t-shirt called hashtag Hey Jax, because whenever I do something, whenever someone needed something at work, it was also, hey, Jax. And I would come over and they'd be stumped. And all of a sudden I'd just look at it and go, did you look at that? And they go, oh, like it was right in front of their face. So number smart, compare and contrast. Yes, yes, yes. I can say I have a little bit of that. I'd say a dash of that in my recipe. Word smart is next. Oh, and think about that as a recipe. Because if you only have a dash of salt, how many times we watch a lot of competition shows in regards to cooking, and most times one of the comments are, there is never enough salt. Salt is missing. You could season a little bit more. So you may think that, oh well, that's nothing because I could do this. It's a dash, and that dash is missing. And when it's missing, so is like the spice of life. So remember that, okay, it's a little bit of a spice, just a dash, but shine, bring it to where it's supposed to be. So word smart is next. That is voices, stories, and communication. You might be the person who can craft an email so clear it could win an award, or tell a story that keeps everyone hooked. Word smart people can shift a mood with a sentence. I'd say I've got a serving of word smart. Then we hit people smart. And yes, this one, yeah, I like this one. This is mine. People smart is all about reading a room, making others feel safe, and building trust without saying a word. It's the mediator energy, the connector energy. I have the ability of making a place feel safe for people to be themselves. That's what one of my gifts is. And Flow Smart, this is the choreography of life. It is knowing where things go, how they fit, and the sequence that keeps it smooth. Whether you are designing a kitchen layout or running an event, Flow Smart makes it all feel effortless. Oh man, I have moments of Flow Smart. Yes, I could build. I am the type of person around those type of situations, but that's pulling it where you have to really apply myself for it. Is it an automatically natural thing? Well, when I'm creating programs and working on podcasts, maybe, but that's where that comes in. So that's where you find the can in your can't, because you can apply these to what you already have instead of what the definition is. If you can make things feel smoother in some kind of situation, you have flow smartness. Design smart takes it up to visual notch, layout, looks, style. You see the end result in your head before you even start. Ooh, artists are like that, or interior design, fashion, makeup, hair, stuff like that. Oh, yeah, you notice what others miss, the spacing, the color, the balance. Woo, I'm a struggle one in the I'm on the struggle bus with design, but I do play with it around a little bit, and I should really work around that, because I have neighbors that come and tell me that I have a real good sense of design and an eye for that. And I need to maybe work on my I'm the type of person statement a little more about that, because I have an eye for design. Then there is self smart, the inside game. This is knowing your feelings, knowing your limits, and knowing how to protect your energy. Self smart people have boundaries they hold, and they are tuned in to what they need before anyone else says a word. Ooh, self smart. I've met a self smart boy, and he's like 20 years old, and it's amazing. He knows what his boundaries are. Like, nope, 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 nope. Music smart is rhythm and timing. It is the beat keepers, the people who know instinctively when to step in and when to hold back. It is literal music, or the music of how you move through life. It I know. I struggle with music. I love music, and I, as a youngster, attempted to play the accordion, but my timing was a little off. I have a difficult time keeping rhythm to a degree in regards to how a song is supposed to be played. I have a piano here, and I had difficulty getting the timing right on how I felt the song was in my body versus how the music requested it to be played. So, music smart, ooh, that's a little bit of a struggle, but I do love it. In regards to music smart, that's also dancing or anything to do with music. I watch shows where people write songs or compose music, and it blows my mind on how creative their mind can be. Nature Smart is all about seasons, materials, and the natural order of things. You feel the shift when the air changes. They know how to work with their environment instead of against it. These are the gardeners, the weather people, the people that live off the land, the people that are into essential oils and naturalist healing and all of these things. Anything that works, any of the modalities that work with the earth would be nature smart people. And then we close with the big picture smart. Yeah, I'd say I'm a big picture person. This is purpose and connections. It is seeing how all the moving pieces fit together, even when they look unrelated. It is holding the map when everyone else only has the direction to one street. Yes, I could see that. I could bring people up to a higher level awareness, higher, bigger, expand, just to make them look a little bit different, to expand their mindset. Because I really claim the saying that from Einstein, you can never solve your problems with the thinking that created them, which means you need to shift your thinking just a little bit in order to make that change. Who knew that flash 4 years later, I am invited to a dinner by a family member, and they're in-laws to me. And what's interesting about them is that they are very celebrated book smart people and surround themselves with other celebrated book smart people. And that is a place where my husband and I struggle to be, because neither one of us would be classified as book smart. I have been told to my face. Girlfriend came to me and she says, "You know what? When I first met you, I thought you were completely scatterbrained. And then I found out how brilliant you are." So my intelligence comes into situational because I love to solve problems and make things easier for people and help them in any way I can. But at that time, I only focused on book smart. When it came to this dinner, they gave us the warning that they were inviting a couple where one couple was fantastic, dynamic, really great, life of the party, fun to have, and the other one was a complete anchor of woe. All she did was talk about her brilliance and her book smartness, and it was boring as hell. Needless to say, as the day was progressing, this woman was sitting by herself in this area. There was a dining room, and then in an L shape, there was a seating area, and then further out, there was the living room. So you could see all three areas. She was sitting in the middle all by herself. And I decided that I would go and sit beside her and take the storm head on. So we sat down, and I listened to her drone on, and oh my God, it was about how smart she was and how hard she worked and what she did and all this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, I caught out of the side of my eye my family member going to sit in the living room area, even though there was an area where he could come and sit with us. I'm like, you dirty dog. Leave me here with her, this anchor of woe. But I figured, you know what? We have to get off this left brain track. And so I said to her, I said, you have a fabulous left brain, which means that it is going 90 miles an hour all the time. In order for you to survive as a human, you must have some right brain activities to complement that, or you would go mad. So tell me about some of the right brain activities that you do. And my family member, when I said that question, almost got whiplash by turning around to see what she was going to do. Now, the woman did make a little bit of a, you could see it was like a reset, like a mental glitch in the matrix, because she sat there and kind of shaked her head a bit. And she goes, well, I do like medieval Ren fairs and such. And I went, oh my God, I went to one of those too. And we started talking about costumes and stuff like that. And we only got to talk maybe about a good 5-10 minutes before we got called to dinner. And the woman looked at me and she looked like she actually really enjoyed the conversation. Her face was softer and she was really relaxed. And it really proved to me that you could have different levels of intelligence. But clearly, my brain still had some things that it had to get over because I work in the healthcare industry. And for the first 8.5 years of my career, I was an exceptional patient advocate. I was able to pull miracles out of my ass to help people get through and navigate our horrendous medical system and be able to make their day a little easier. There were people that got scheduled at the wrong clinics, or they had their paperwork out of order, or something happened that their insurance wasn't correct, and I was able to help them. I even got a White Knight award with how awesome I was at doing this. So if you ever wanted something done in the most difficult situations, you came to me because I was classified the fixer. That was my job, and I was exceptional at it. Needless to say, we had a couple come in, and there was a problem with her appointment, and her husband was an absolute dick. He kept talking down to me like, why are you here? What are you doing? And then finally he looked at me and he said, he goes, so do you have a degree? And I said, no. He goes, well, then you're a no help to me. And I went, you asshole. And it really hit me. And I thought, you know what? I feel bad enough that this woman has to live with you. I'm going to do everything in my power to show who I am. And all it did was set a precedent that he gets what he wants when he treats me that way. And that was part of the issue I had about whether or not helping. But that's who I am instead of that's who he is. But you know what? I was so thankful for that experience because that happened first thing in the morning. And then later on that morning, I went to visit a fellow coworker, and she was in her office and she goes, oh my God, Jax, I found the job. And I'm like, what job are you talking about? She goes, the job. I've been looking for it for 4 months every time I looked, and there was never there. And I finally found it. And I looked at it, and it was like in a different department doing something completely different than I'm doing now. There was no patient care whatsoever. In fact, the program that we used is called Epic. And I was as an epic super user. I called it a super loser because I never really was a super user. I just saw the problem that held people up and was really good at problem solving. But in this job, you never use that program at all. So it was completely something different. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to see what it's all about. So I look down, I see it's in the department. So I head downstairs and I find out that the man that actually runs that department, the one that I would be working with, was in his office. But really, I knew him by reputation as an awkward man, but I knew that I could talk to him to see what the prospects of the job were. So I asked him if he was busy, and he said yes. And I said, "Well, I can come back later." He goes, "No." He goes, "We could do it now." And he interviewed me on the spot and told me that if I want the job, I can have it. So I I go upstairs and think about it because, first of all, I used to have 4 10s, which meant that I had every Friday off. So I had a 3-day weekend every weekend, which was fabulous. Even though the days were long from Monday to Thursday, it was nice to have that Friday off. And the other thing was that I highly doubted that I would get an increase in pay because I was going sideways. I was going lateral instead of up. And depending on where you are in this union format that we had with our pay schedule, you could actually go down in pay if you were going into a lateral department. So I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought, something just told me to just do it. And so I applied for the job and I found out that the manager was actually coming to the clinic that next morning. And as I found out now, she doesn't come out all that much. It was rare for her to come out, but she happened to be coming out that morning. They were going to interview me that morning. And as I left, manager told me right away that if you're going to interview, you need to let your supervisor know. And I thought, okay. And as I came up the stairs, my supervisor happened to be there. And this was kind of strange because it was before the clinic hours and she had no business being there that day. She had just happened to be there. And so I gave my notice to her and it was seamless. In 48 hours, I had moved departments. And what was really difficult for me is that I never realized what I was walking into. I was walking into an absolute shit show. And it had nothing to do with the department. It had everything to do with the job. And it had to do with what I was able to do. When I was 40 years old, that sounds like forever. When I was 40 years old, I was going through a very stressful time. My life was a complete dumpster fire and my memory was going really bad. At that time, I was in a religious environment and we said grace before our meal. And I remember sitting down at the table one day and we said grace. And then I looked 2 seconds later. I had no recollection of saying grace. And I said, "What are we, animals? We don't say grace." And my boys just looked at me, "Mom, we just said it." "No, we didn't." Yes, yes, we did. It freaked me out. I was getting disorientated in a city that I've lived in for 30 years and drove around. I was looking at my mother and I had a hard time recognizing her and my memory was slipping. I took a Alzheimer's test where they do a memory test on you and she said that my memory was just fine in the areas that they test for and I felt royally fucked. I'm like, "Oh my God," because I can just switch things and my brain will just turn off or do some kind of Tourette's type of thing where it just puts wherever it wants, whenever it wants, without any consideration of what if it's right or wrong. So I started my job and I found out that, oh my God, I'm in that area of my brain that has the most struggle. And I just crashed. I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I ever going to be enough? How am I going to excel in this job? And as it turned out, I have excelled at this job and it turned out to be a dream job because you know why? The job can be completely remote and I get the privilege of making my own schedule. I can come and go as I want. And I can work around my schedule to have no PTO and I'm very thankful for that. So it is a complete gift. But if I would allowed that man, that rude man, to crush me because of my value when he told me I never had any degree, then I would never be here because that was before my podcast. That was before everything. And it sparked me to make the move. And now I'm here in the best place possible that I could create a life for myself to transition through. So to sum this all up, self value lives inside you. Self value lives inside me. Titles may help in one lane, but they never define my worth. Shirley's lens reminded me that smart has many lanes, and Thanksgiving showed how people and flow soften a room, because those are my special intelligences. The clinic sting marked a lane change, but the new job fits because I built simple supports for my scatterbrain brain and let my strengths lead. My anchor stays the same. I'm the type of person who builds safety and shows the next step. I'm the type of person who has excellent attention to detail. I'm the type of person that does things right the first time. I'm the type of person. Finally, the second thing that the Blue Bloods gave to me was an inspiration, and that inspiration came from a gift. My husband and I watched the show, and one of the things that we noticed is that they said the word forthwith many, many times. And we're like, what, why? That is, sounds very difficult. Why don't you just say now, damn it? Like instead of forthwith. And we started counting how many there were. And he asked me, he goes, I was wondering if I could get a forthwith t-shirt. And I thought, oh, how awesome. So I started looking around to see if there were a forthwith t-shirt, and there never was one. They had one small sticker of a picture of Tom Selleck with the word. And well, of course, because if you have anything to do with Tom Selleck on it, you're going to have to do some kind of rights or whatever. So I'm like, no. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to create my own t-shirt. And I did. And so if you've heard any of the other previous episodes where I said, there's forthwith merchants, that's what I mean by that. And that reminds me to always stay grounded. And when the universe says forthwith, it really means now, damn it. And I've had some situations in my life where I've had to now, damn it. If this served you, please follow the show, tap 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, or leave a comment about your favorite moment, and share this with a friend who carries not enough as theirs. Thank you for helping more people find this work. You can leave me a message on justjackspodcast@gmail.com, or you can contact me on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and hashtag HeyJax on Reddit. Also, you can get a hold of my Kick-Ass Cursive Writing Curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online. If you want the PDF version, just go to my website at go to my website, crackthecursiveCode.com, and there you can also find my Loser, Forthwith, and Shift merchandise. I hope that this helped you, because it sure has helped me to remind myself that, like in episode 18, our value comes from within. And when people tell us that we're not enough, we are simply have to find the places where we are. Love you. Jack's out.